It's the holiday season, and for many people, they're stressed and they need to calm. That's what my last two videos were about. Check those out if that's you. But for some, they get the holiday blues, and it's a really tough time to feel happy and joyful and get the energy to do everything they want to do. So today's video is about that. I want to talk to you a little bit about a skill that can help when you're feeling a little bit low energy, a little bit down. This comes from Marsha Linehan and the dialectical behavior therapy model. So we call this accepts. So when you're trying to get yourself activated and moving and feeling more energized, you might think about the word accepts. A would be activities, doing activities. And it sounds counterintuitive because you're not feeling like doing anything, right? You're having low energy. But reminding yourself that energy creates energy, right? A body in motion stays in motion. We've heard those things. A lot of times what we really need is that moment of talking to ourselves that says, hey, I know that if I start an activity, I'm going to feel more energized, right? Motivation comes after action. Have you ever had a big sink of dirty dishes? It's the last thing in the world you wanted to do, but you finally somehow convince yourself to just do a couple of them. Just the ones you needed to eat, your meal right now. You get in there, you get the warm soapy water on your hands, you've got a couple dishes washed, and suddenly you feel motivated to do a couple more, and then a couple more, and next thing you know, you feel motivated to just finish it. You're like, I'm just gonna finish it. I want the whole thing empty, right? Because motivation came after the action, right? After you started doing it, that's when you felt like finishing it, or you felt like doing more. It doesn't always happen, we know that, right? Sometimes we are just too depressed or too exhausted to finish an activity once we've started it. But many times we'll find if we can just do a small action, it will start to create that cumulative effect, right? Like a big snowball rolling down the hill and gathering energy, gathering size, right? So maybe if I don't even have to brush my teeth well, right? Just do the little bit that I can, I'll start to feel energized to wash my face or to get in the shower, right? So picking something small, letting that activity move you forward, right? Saying yes to things, having somebody hold you accountable to meet you somewhere. Maybe you don't feel like leaving the house to go shopping for the holidays. Can you just get a friend to meet you for a coffee, someplace that you know is going to have energizing music or have some shopping around, and you may have the energy and the desire to do a little bit of shopping afterwards. But remember, you got to give yourself permission. If you get there, you do the coffee with a friend, and you're exhausted, you are allowed to go home, right? So that you're not avoiding it next time. So try to do a little bit, get out there and do activities, but remember, start small and see how you feel halfway through, okay? So A of accepts is activities. C is going to be contributing, right? And so we often get a lot of energy from giving to others. It doesn't feel like we're going to, we're like, I got nothing left. But volunteering can be really energizing. It can also just be something very tiny, like opening a door for someone and holding it for them. It can be, just doing something kind, like giving someone the good parking spot and going and getting one farther away, right? These little bits of giving and contributing to society can build up positive feelings in us, can start to create a lot of energy that we never knew was there. So try to find some little ways to contribute or give. Again, it doesn't have to be money, it doesn't have to be a ton of time. If you're not feeling ready for that, just get yourself out where there are other people, right? And whether it's giving, a few quarters to the person ringing a bell, or whether it's giving up a parking spot, it doesn't have to be big. It can start to give you those feelings of energizing and feeling more in the holiday spirit. The next C in accepts is comparisons. Now, a lot of times comparisons get us in big trouble, especially on social media. So you may want to stay away from that. Don't be looking at who has the perfectly decorated tree, who's doing the garlands on a, curtain rod this year or something, right? Instead, compare yourself to others who might be struggling more than you. It doesn't sound pretty, but it does work, right? Sometimes we forget that comparisons work the other way, to remind ourselves that there are people out there who, might not be able to make a meal for the holidays. There might be people out there who aren't going to be able to get any gifts, never mind a couple of them under the tree, right? And so we start to feel like, something's not good enough, or we're not doing it well enough, or we're not going to have enough, right? Remembering that the world is big, and I'm speaking from an American, what we see as not enough is often way more than most people in the entire world can really imagine. And so just taking a moment to compare yourself to more average, persons, or to people who are struggling more than you, right? Being grateful I have legs that can move me, I have arms that can lift. These kinds of things can be really useful if we're doing it in that way, and get away from those other comparisons that aren't real anyway. The E in accepts is emotions. And so what this is about is when we're feeling a certain emotion that isn't pleasant, a short-term way to help us is to do the opposite action, right? And so if we're feeling, sad or down, you might put on joyful, activating music, be able to put on something uplifting. If we are feeling lonely, we might watch, a movie where there's a lot of togetherness. It can actually make us feel really good to have that there and kind of do the opposite emotion with the movie. If you're noticing that, music or movies isn't working well, try to find other things that help create opposite feelings in you. Typically, I feel like music is the fastest way to do that, but it could be going for a brisk walk, right? If we're feeling, kind of in a slump and down, doing something like that can be really useful. Calling a friend that we know tends to be kind of high energy, letting them chatter away can be useful when we're feeling low energy. So trying to think about opposite emotions and how do we bring that into our life when we're needing to shift how we're feeling. P is for push away. This again is a short-term strategy, not something to do forever and always, but if we're really struggling, we might write down that thing we're struggling with, tuck it into a side table, or remind ourselves like that's a problem for tomorrow, that's a January 1st problem. Sometimes those things can be helpful, right? We don't want to avoid our struggles forever, but sometimes we're not in an emotional state. It's not a good time to problem solve anyway. And so pushing away purposely, moving our mind to something else can be really helpful. And again, it doesn't have to be from a negative to a positive. We can move our mind from something that isn't, helping us to feel very good to something that's just more neutral, right? It could be something that's just here and now in the present. If you need help with that, I have the 1-minute mindfulness video I put up a couple weeks ago you can check out, and that can be really helpful. And then on the word accepts, T, of course, so for thoughts, we really want to make sure that we're checking our thoughts. Are they helpful to us right now? Are they effective? Are they healthy, right? Many times our thoughts are not really useful to us, even if they are accurate. A lot of times they're not even accurate, right? They have full of distortions, like trying to mind read what other people are thinking about us, or maybe kind of seeing things in black and white, good or bad, all or nothing, right? And so kind of taking a moment and checking our thoughts and adjusting them if we need to. One more thought on thoughts is if you're in the midst of struggling with your thoughts, you can count backwards. Something that takes a little bit of mental energy, right? Like starting at 100 and going down, 99, 98, 97. As you start to go through it, it can take a little more energy to remember. There's also like subtracting by sevens if you feel like you really need to get your brain working. Or naming all your the players on your favorite team, right? If you can go through and get past the quarterback, right? and be able to name all the players. Something that takes a lot of energy, those kind of thoughts help kind of snap us out of the negative thinking and gets us back into a place where we're more here and now, more present and grounded. And then S for accepts is sensations. So this is about noticing the sensations in your body, right? When we're feeling low and slumped, right? We usually just want to curl up into our bed or onto a warm couch, and not move. But if we're not doing well, change the sensation, right? Do 10 jumping jacks, do 5 push-ups, go for a brisk walk, splash some cold water on our face. If we're feeling really uncomfortable, a lot of times ice can be helpful, either to squeeze it or place it on your wrists. Or if you have access to a bowl of ice water, you can put both wrists into it, that area right there on the wrist where your veins and arteries are very close to the surface. Changing the temperature of our bloodstream quickly actually does change the sensations and emotions in our body. It activates different parts of our nervous system. So thinking about how can I change the sensations inside my body, right? By doing something, whether it's brisk exercise, whether it's hot or cold. You can go in a shower and turn it on real warm and then go to real cold and then real warm. These kinds of things can actually kind of bust us out of that funk when we're feeling blue. So I know the holiday blues they're a tough one, and sometimes it can feel really difficult to move through them, and sometimes we'll have wins and sometimes we won't. But try these different activities, have some willingness to step outside your comfort zone and try a few things. And remember that acronym that comes from the dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT, and Marsha Linehan, that accepts can be a useful process, right? I accept that sometimes I get the holiday blues. I accept that sometimes things are difficult, and I can actually do something about it. I can go through that acronym and just try it out. Let me know what you think. I'm Dr. Kristen Kopes, clinical psychologist. Thanks so much for being here today. You've blessed me with your presence, and I hope you have a safe and happy holiday.